Today, my guest is Professor Africa Ariño. I will keep my introduction short to maximize our time with her. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk about Africa as a person, Professor Ariño is a thought leader and an esteemed scholar, and finally is a mentor to many PhD students and junior faculty. For the sake of time, I'll skip many of her accomplishments and give you a very quick snapshot. Professor Ariño is a fellow of the Strategic Management Society. She's also the president of SMS and has worked and served at various leadership positions. Africa served on the executive committee of the BPS, now the STR division of Academy of Management. She sits on the editorial review boards of JIBS, Journal of Management Studies, among others. She served as the associate editor of Academy of Management Discoveries, European Management Review, and Global Strategy Journal. Thank you, Africa, for joining us.
Thank you, Ilgas, so much for your invitation to have this conversation.
Of course. Africa, what did you want to become when you were a child?
Funny enough, I wanted to be a teacher, not necessarily a researcher, but a teacher. And that comes from my family tradition. So my father was a public servant, a high school teacher, but as a public servant. And I have 5 other siblings, and out of the 6 of us, 5 of us are dedicated to academia or to teaching. So it runs in the family blood. This is what I had always thought of being. Again, I had not seen myself as a researcher because that was new to me, but as a teacher, yes.
It was a destiny, basically. You were destined to become a teacher. Africa, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a city that's halfway between Madrid and Barcelona, so in Spain, but in a city that's called Zaragoza. But actually, something that people don't know about me and they are curious about, people ask me, why on earth were you named Africa? And the reason being is that I was born in a city that is in the northern part of Africa. So that's why. But we moved back to mainland Spain when I was a very young kid. So essentially, I grew up in mainland Spain.
Interesting. About choosing academia, obviously your family had an influence. But how did you decide to choose strategic management, international strategy, global strategy as a field of study?
Well, I was applying for my PhD, well, strategic management overall. I did an MBA and that was a field that appealed to me. Mm-hmm. So as I was applying for the PhD program, that was the late 80s. And it was a time when Spain was about to join the European Union. Mm. And at the time, people were considering like all of the competition that could come to the country. And I remember someone saying, well, even if you do not sell a single cent outside your country, you still compete internationally because of international competition that comes in. Mm-hmm. So this is how I somehow became intrigued by international business and international management. And then, I went to UCLA, and my advisor there was Jose de la Torre, who was a very well known in the AIB and a very well known scholar, and somehow the whole thing evolved that way.
Perfect. Something that is not on your CV that people might find interesting other than the fact that you were born in Africa?
Yeah, well, it's related to that. I have a passion for Africa. So a few years ago, I decided to take some sabbatical time and spend it in Lagos Business School in Nigeria and at the Strathmore Business School in Kenya. And that was a fascinating experience, I have to say. Very, very stimulating to live in that context.
Interesting. And what part of Africa, or why do you have this interest in Africa?
Well, here at my school at IESE, we have a very close connection to a number of schools in emerging countries that we have contributed developing. And on one occasion, like a year before I took that sabbatical or so, we had a meeting of professors in strategic management across the various schools. And as I heard one of them coming from Lagos Business School, how he talked about his school and his country, I thought, I have to be there. The future is there, and I need to go and try to start understanding it before things are cooked. So that's why I decided to go there.
Interesting. If you stop doing what you're doing today, what's the second best alternative career path for you?
I think I could do something totally different. I think I could dedicate myself to some activity that had to do directly with taking care of people. So I don't know, maybe I could be in something related to taking care of old people, not necessarily doing it myself, but managing something like that, or schools or something related to caring of people.
Interesting. Regrets, have you got any regrets?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Regrets, have you got any regrets?
Regrets. Yes, not having taken sabbaticals more frequently.
Okay.
At the same time, I mean, I regret it from a scholarly perspective, also from a human perspective, but at the same time, because it was for family reasons that were important to me, I do not regret. I wish I could have, but it's not something that I regret.
Sure. What are you most passionate about?
I love theater improvisation.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, I had not realized how much I love it until not too long ago. Someone here, a staff member of the school, organized a workshop for whomever in the school wanted to join. And I thought, this is for me. And I just love it. And in retrospect, I realized that this is something that I have always enjoyed, like joking with making people believe something and then telling them, no, that was a joke. That's not true. That was, and but I always say that it's not true. I will not let things go. So I love that.
Is this like a training? Are you receiving training and then performing? How does this work?
Yeah, well, we do it for fun. So yes, there is this person who is running it. Actually, she's an actress by training, but because it's difficult for her to live on that, she has a job, and but she enjoys it very much. So she's the one that runs the workshop, and yeah, it's training, but it's for fun. So initially we had thought maybe we do it and then we prepare some performance, but we thought, no, we are having so much fun just enjoying it that we just do it for ourselves. So we do it once a week, And now with the pandemics, that things are more difficult and we cannot meet, but still we do it online. It's not the same, but still we manage to have fun once a week for an hour and a half, something like that.
Interesting. So are we going to see anything in SMS program, conference program?
Well, actually, it's a strategy imagination. And I thought, we should bring something on improvisation there. But well, this is something that at times I think it would be interesting to because there is some literature on improvisation in organizations and so on. And I thought it would be interesting to do some research on that. But because I have not, I'm not going to, I did not submit anything because again, even though it's interesting to me and I would love to do research on that, but it's not the time.
Interesting. Let's switch to the research segment and let's talk about the how do you explain your research to people who don't read your work regularly? Say you're stranded in a pub in a small village, and how do you explain the importance of your research?
Well, I think that nowadays it's easier to explain it. My research is on strategic alliances and collaboration among organizations. So people may not know, but thanks to these collaborations, nowadays we have anti-COVID vaccines. And we have them now because companies have joined forces to develop those vaccines and to manufacture them at scale and to distribute them. So we all hear about the Pfizer vaccine, but Pfizer developed it along with BioNTech. Or we hear about the AstraZeneca vaccine, but they developed it with the University of Oxford. And also not just for the vaccines, but at the very early stages of the pandemic, when there was no infrastructure for treatment or not enough infrastructure for treatment, well, some companies were very creative in coming together. So Mercedes worked together with, in this case, engineers at University College London and clinicians at the university's hospital to develop a breathing aid.
Yeah.
And also, as we hopefully start recovering from the pandemics and organizations will have to, some companies will have to find new ways, new activities to carry out because, you know, their activity has declined at enormous levels. Well, they don't have the capabilities that they need to engage in these new activities, and they collaborate with other companies. Like, for instance, I know of a hotel chain that has figured, well, in the future, our guests will be very concerned about health. So they have partnered with an insurance company to provide health services to their guests. So alliances and collaboration across among companies are very important.
Perfect. Africa, about the omitted variables in international strategy research, management research at the global scale, what are some of the understudied areas?
I could highlight a very specific aspect that I have been thinking about recently, which is subjective time. And in a way, time is central to many of the phenomena that we study in IB. So we have been studying the rhythm and pace of international expansion and the timing of entry mode and so on. And because time is easy to measure, we tend to treat time as an objective concept, like clock time. However, people from different geographies and cultures understand and experience time in different ways. So I was discussing with a colleague recently, and he reminded me of an anecdote that I shared with him in time ago when I was visiting Nigeria. And the anecdote actually comes is that someone was going to take a bus. The anecdote is from time ago. It didn't happen recently. Time meaning decades. Someone was taking a bus to go to another city, and he asked, when will the bus depart? And the answer was, when it's full. So people experience time differently. And that's because we have different temporal reference frameworks, and we attach different meanings to temporal concepts. So what's early and what's late, what's short-term, what's long-term, that differs across countries and cultures. And for instance, also, talking to a lawyer who was involved in creating joint ventures between Chinese companies and Western companies, he said to me, well, the Chinese, and I don't know whether our Chinese friends here will agree to this, but let me share with you what the lawyer said. The Chinese counterparts know that when the managers from the Western companies go to China, they are spending a lot of money, putting a lot of time, so they are in a rush to get the deal done. And the local managers, the Chinese managers, know that. So they play around that and postpone until the Westerners get impatient and they sign off. So subjective time has may have an enormous influence in business reality and how we manage companies internationally. So I think this is something important to pay attention to.
Beautiful. It's going to be related later on, but if a PhD student comes to you and says, I'm thinking about a dissertation topic, what's going to be in the forefront? What's going to be the most interesting growth areas in the next 5 to 10 years in the field? Well, what's going to be the advice for students who are searching for interesting ideas for research?
Yeah. I could say that organizational design of international companies, ranging from small born global companies to large established multinational corporations. And the reason for that is that the nature of work is changing. So driven by digital transformation, the effect that artificial intelligence is having and will have on automation. Also, the pandemic has shown us that we can work in a different way, and it has, I believe it has accelerated a move towards dispersed collaboration. On the other hand, in addition to technological transformation, there is a change in employment relations. So the gig economy and spot labor markets, there are fewer opportunities for secure employment. So in addition to that, the need for individuals to find meaning in their work, and a different concept of professional career. So I think that all of this has implications on how people interact with organizations and on how to integrate individuals into the organization and how to integrate individual efforts. So this I believe is leading to a need for new ways of organizing. And I think this opens a very interesting area of research. Not that organization design per se is something new, of course, but in the current context and environment, I think that the way companies organize their international operations is changing, and we need to address that.
In the context of Africa, do you see any new research streams specific to the land there, new theories or new applications, new contexts, new puzzles, new phenomena? Do you see anything that might be of interest?
Actually, yes. I think that things that struck me when I was there were, for instance, that Africans have a communal mentality. So they integrate that mentality in their business model. So for instance, social responsibility. It's an integral part of their business model. Or involvement of stakeholders, that comes natural to them. Probably also the fact that they are more embedded in nature and that they have not lost contact with nature as much as we have in other parts of the world. I think that that also makes a difference because, again, they consider the human being as part of nature. So taking care of nature is taking care of oneself. So if company that leads companies or to take care of the natural environment, even of course that there are many problems there. There are many problems because also the multinational corporations that have been there, not all of them have been careful about that.
Can you say something about the evolution of international strategy from years ago to the current one?
Yeah.
Where are we going? Where are we? I mean, obviously, we are progressing, we're evolving.
Yeah.
What can we say?
Well, I think it relates somehow to this, in that a few decades ago, maybe a couple of decades ago or so, or three, the view was of the world was like a tripod, right? It was the US, Europe, and Japan. And in the last couple of decades or so, and more so in the last one, the emerging countries have come to the forefront. And I think that recognition of the international activities that stem out of these countries is gaining more attention. So I see this as a positive evolution. And related to that, in the past, I think that international business research was done mostly, or as we know it, from Western universities and from the Western world, and focusing on the international activities of Western companies. And I think that nowadays there is recognition that there is value in the perspectives that come from other parts of the world.
And talking about advice and mentoring, what was the best advice you received from your advisor going through the program?
Well, the need to engage with firsthand with the business reality. So not to rely only on secondary information, but also to gain access to primary information. And then this other advice does not come from my advisor, from Jose, but actually from Jean-François Enart. When I was a PhD student, I attended a consortium that was at the Academy, AOM, the International Management Division Consortium. And he was saying that the research, and especially publishing, but research overall, he says, is a skin thickening process. In that you need to be ready to get criticism and not to take it personal, to be called about it, to figure out what's in it, what do I need to revise in my research, and not to be discouraged or depressed because your work is criticized. I think this is very important.
And that brings me to a question. What are the common mistakes, common issues that you see in junior faculty or PhD students that they normally do, that they need to realize that this is not the way, what are the things to fix? What is the top 3 advice that you can give to young scholars?
Well, I think that one is to fear that research is a social process, that you cannot do it just on your own, that it's a mix. It's, on the one hand, it's very entrepreneurial, and on the other hand, it's social. So no one is going to do the research for you. You have to come up with your own ideas and your own projects. But it's very social. So get exposure of your research, exchange ideas, go to conferences, discuss your ideas with other people, gain insights. And then this brings me to collaborative research. Even though I said create your own project, yes, but I think that when you find people that you work well with, that's very powerful, because that sparks your thoughts and you become more creative, and I really enjoy doing work with others.
Africa, what is a question that I should have asked you but haven't?
Well, maybe one question that you could have asked me is that, given that my expertise is in qualitative research, one question is, what's the value of qualitative research? Because not everybody has an appreciation for it. And one criticism that this type of research often gets is, well, but how can you generalize from a small sample? And I think that people who say that do not have enough understanding of what qualitative research is about. The purpose of qualitative research, and in particular case study research, is not to generalize to the population, but to generalize to theory. And this is where the value of qualitative research comes in. Observing data, observing a phenomenon, connecting the dots in that phenomenon, finding patterns in the data, and from there generalize to theory. So.
Perfect. Erica, thank you so much for this very interesting conversation. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience will agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ilgas. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you.